to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat podcast, where we share lessons and stories of women professionals to help empower other women and expand a greater circle of influence so we walk our journey with those who understand and appreciate us. Today, we'll talk with Dr. Catherine Workman about her journey as a scientist, a visionary, and a leader at National Geographic. The Vice President of Science at National Geographic, Catherine is a trained anthropologist. She has extensive experience in policy, strategy, management, metrics, and communications of international grant-making, biodiversity conservation, and combating wildlife trafficking. Catherine is also widely published in articles relating to conservation topics. She received her MA in anthropology at the University of Colorado Boulder and her Ph.D. in evolutionary anthropology at Duke University.
Good morning, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual water cooler chat. I am so excited to have you on today's chat.
Well, thank you, Ashley. It's my pleasure to get to speak with you.
So let's start right with, we provide a pretty impressive clipped up version of your professional background. Would you mind sharing how you started your career as an anthropologist and also at National Geographic?
Sure. Oh gosh, we've got to go back a few decades. So I started becoming interested in anthropology by chance, by complete happy coincidence that I took a class during college one summer, just trying to fill credits. It was called The Human Animal, and it sounded fascinating. And I took it with this professor named Bert Covert, who ended up becoming a influential human in my life. He really, beyond my parents, probably shaped my professional path more than any person I've met. He was a phenomenal professor. He's recently retired, actually. So I guess I'll talk about him in the past tense, but he's very much alive. He was a phenomenal professor and just really opened my eyes to the world of anthropology, which is the study of humans. And the way that I became so interested in the study of humans was through our non-human primate kin. So the course was largely about conservation and how humans and non-humans share space and don't sometimes share space very successfully. And I didn't know the word anthropology in high school. I didn't really think about conservation. I've always been an animal lover, but what it meant to do conservation, the practice of conservation. And Bert opened my eyes to that. And so I added anthropology as a second major to English literature and went to Panama the next year for a field course on an island and had my first experience in a tropical rainforest studying monkeys, capuchin monkeys and howling monkeys. And I was just wowed. Like the tropical forest to me, just everything was alive and vibrant. The colors were sharper. The rain made everything, just feel more alive and richer and deeper. And it just really felt like I was in an Alice in Wonderland where, just everything felt kind of larger than life and really beautiful. And, despite the early mornings in the mud and the craning your neck up to see the monkeys way up in the tree, like everything just resonated with me. And I knew that this is something that I wanted to keep doing. So I graduated with English Lit and anthropology as my two majors. I joined Bert. He invited me to Vietnam, where he had recently started. He moved from paleontology to studying living extant primates. And Vietnam happens to have some of the world's, for the small size of the country, some of the world's most endangered primates live in Vietnam. And so I joined him there for 3 months after I graduated and helped him out on a field project studying the ontogeny, or the growth and development of the locomotor behavior, the traveling behavior of 3 species of monkey, and just fell in love with it. Fell in love with Vietnam, with my friends, my colleagues, the food. I'm vegetarian. Everything resonated with me there. And also just the plight of the wildlife there, beyond the primates, the plight of all humans. Again, going back to that first course in anthropology of humans and non-human animals trying to share space. And in this country, space is very limited. So how do humans successfully develop, put food on the table, be successful, take care of their families while also caring for, in the case of Vietnam, really distinct animals that are found, it's called endemic, found only within that country. And it happens to have several primate species that are only found in that small country. So to me, it was just this great nexus of all these issues I cared about in one country. And I knew that I would return to Vietnam. And so I stayed at CU Boulder and did my master's with Bert, working back in Vietnam. And then for my Ph.D., I went to Duke University and continued to study collaby beans, leaf-eating monkeys in Vietnam, and then graduated. And a German colleague of mine living in Vietnam, wrote me a hand letter, sent it from Vietnam. It arrived, my last year at Duke, saying, the Denver Zoo is hiring for a conservation biology position. You should apply. And so I went online. Sure enough, there was a job opening. And so I graduated from Duke and took a job out in Denver working in the conservation biology department at Denver Zoo, which allowed me, they were interested in developing an in situ or in location conservation program in Vietnam. So it was just, again, this like terribly serendipitous opportunity for me to take my particular set of experiences, skills, talents, connections, and leverage them to help Denver Zoo develop a program in Vietnam. So I was there for only 10 months because I had received a grant from the National Geographic Society to fund part of my field work in Vietnam. And so I had stayed in touch with the people who I met at National Geographic. They actually had come, the committee that evaluated my grant proposal came and visited my field site in Vietnam. We got in little bamboo boats together. I was able to show them this critically endangered monkey that was scampering along the limestone cliffs of the field site where I lived at dusk. I mean, it was just magical. And so they reached out to me. National Geographic, my program officer, reached out to me while I was working at Denver Zoo and said, I'm leaving. I know that you're interested in DC because you're interested in international biodiversity conservation and human rights and politics. And I had made no bones about the fact that I was very interested in living in DC and working for a large international conservation organization. And so he reached out and told me he was leaving and I should apply. I did apply and I got the job. So 11 months after moving to Denver for the job, my dog and I drove back across the country to DC and started a job at National Geographic in 2011. And I was there for 3 years, loved it, learned tons, and then kind of thought, I'm ready to learn new stuff. And so I went to USAID. I applied for a AAAS, American Association for the Advancement of Science, has Science and Technology Policy Fellowships, which places scientists within the federal government so that we can lend expertise to inform evidence-based decision-making. And in turn, scientists can learn, what it means to do federal policymaking and implementation, which is a lot to learn and very nuanced and super complicated and really very different from the life of, a bench scientist, even very different from the life of somebody who's working in applied science at an NGO. So I went to USAID. I was in the Office of Forestry and Biodiversity, supporting, luckily again, the Vietnam mission and the Madagascar mission as they developed their biodiversity conservation portfolios. And I was there a year before National Geographic reached out to me, again, maintaining those good relationships, not burning bridges, reached out and said, we're developing a wildlife protection initiative. Would you be interested in coming back to National Geographic and leading this? And of course, I said, yeah, I would. It sounds like a huge job, but of course I'm interested and I'm really honored to be asked. And so I came back to the society in 2015, and I have been at National Geographic since 2015. Lots of changes there, but really great colleagues. I always feel like I'm learning and I'm challenged, and I'm able to be deeply involved in science and conservation and practice and getting to talk about issues that I care about to really broad and diverse audiences, which I think is really the best part about National Geographic, is taking that science out to the public and to particular audiences where we have a kind of, I think, a very special way of storytelling science telling in a way that really speaks to people and kind of opens them up to the beauty and wonder and importance of the natural world.
So isn't it amazing sometimes that we don't know exactly how we find our calling?
Totally.
And then somehow through our journey, we just kind of meet different people. I think the best ones is when you don't really kind of go with too much intention and just kind of explore with, like you say, serendipity.
So much serendipity and luck. Yeah. I totally agree with you, Ashley. And for me, it was very important in my core. I know what my values are. I know what I care about. I know the types of issues that I want to be involved in. And I have known since an early age. And again, that goes back to animals. And I think my understanding of what it means to kind of, quote, care about animals has just become more sophisticated. And I, from that early love of animals, it's grown into an understanding of the world is complex, challenges are immense, and how can I lend my particular skills and expertise in a way that helps the world in a small way, create space for the creatures that make this world, more wonderful for my son, that make this world possible for us. I mean, all the ecosystem services that pollinators provide, that clean watersheds provide, that forests provide. It's just it's grown from love of the world to really understanding that I need to go beyond love to action. And yeah, but again, at that core, there's so much luck involved. There's so much, it is serendipity. It's maintaining relationships with people and being kind to people. But at the end of the day, it also is allowing yourself to say yes to possibility, to say yes to new opportunities, while also knowing at your core what matters to you, and recognizing that going off course a little bit is okay, because you're gaining a set of experiences that's going to bring you back as a fuller, more experienced person, to the next opportunity, the next thing. So yeah, I don't think you can, I really don't think I know I would not be where I am today without a tremendous dose of luck, and also people in more senior positions than I reaching back and saying, how can I help you? Taking the time to talk to me, offering me opportunities, and I really hope that I always remember to do that in turn, that it's worth it to answer that email from the undergrad or from the person looking for a job, or to make the connection, or to offer a colleague's email, ask them for an informational interview, because we have to network, we have to help one another. And I think all those things together, plus just like working your tail off, is
Absolutely.
and a big part of it.
And I think part of it is that having wonderful mentors and people that believe in us before we can even believe in ourselves. When we're starting, I think a lot of time we don't really, we kind of like have our own blind spots, but other people just kind of take chances. I had those professors. So when you were talking about bird, I was like, I had my pride.
Yeah.
He's no longer here. And I was like, what exactly? Did you see me? I'm not quite sure. I'm so glad you did. So
that's so special.
It was just so amazing. And that's definitely like pay it forward. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this virtual water cooler chat, and to give voices. And for you, it's even more magnificent, because you're giving voices, speaking to help those wildlife that just cannot speak for themselves. I actually did my homework. I listened to your concluding remarks of the combating wildlife trafficking with the AAAS. So I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to get to talk to Catherine today. Yay! What makes Catherine unique? If you have to describe yourself, what makes you you?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, I could take the easy way out and say we are all unique. I mean, what makes me different, funky individual is my own particular blend of stubbornness, drive, determination, I think heart. I feel very self-motivated, very self-driven, a perfectionist, which is good to a sense because it drives you. It's also not good because you have to remember to give yourself grace and extend that to others as well. What else makes me me? I mean, really, at the end of the day, the values, I'll go back to that. Those to me are extremely important. My values really, really guide me in terms of, hopefully most of the time they do, in terms of the way I live on this earth. The decisions I make or don't make, the decisions I do make are really all fundamentally come back to a place of what I care about the most. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's what makes me who I am.
That's wonderful. I think that is a great answer. I mean, I think, my dad used to say that, my mom used to say that, you're so stubborn. And my dad said, no, she's just principled. I was like, I like that answer.
Oh, I like that. I like that way better.
It's taking a positive spin to it.
Oh my goodness, that is so much better. I'm going to say that from now on. I'm not stubborn, I'm principled. Yes.
Yes, you are.
Exactly. And I'll remind my family of that too.
Yes. So what aspects of your job do you enjoy the most?
Oh gosh, that's so easy. I enjoy buckets of aspects of my job. Just really huge chunks of my job I get deep enjoyment from. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind when you asked that immediately was the people I work with, the team that I lead, the team that I am on, the team. It's the team, as my husband says about his favorite football team. Yep. It really is the people who show up, and it's the empathy and the accountability and the creativity and the solutions, that cohesion, the proactiveness, like the way that we have shaped our team is to come together and to show up for one another and for who we call our explorers. Those are the grantees, the people we fund to do research, conservation, technology projects around the world. We show up to one another, we show up to them, and really we're showing up to the mission of National Geographic, which is to care about, celebrate the wonder of the world. Again, I think at the end of the day, it's a value, how you choose to show up at work, how you choose to be there for the people you're spending a lot of time with, your coworkers. You spend a lot of time with them, whether it's on screens, increasingly, or in the office. They're a huge part of my life. And I get such deep satisfaction from seeing my team members, grow and develop in their professional careers. I'm thankful that most of them have chosen to stay. So I've been able to see their growth and really be able to support that growth and help to empower that growth and elevate them to be seen as the leaders they are across the organization. But eventually will mean them, going beyond National Geographic and finding new opportunities. And I'll support that as well, because I do think at the end of the day, that's really important for leaders to support and build the careers of others to go out, just like I was lucky enough to have from mentors in the past to me. So the team is the first thing. The other thing that I just deeply love about my job is I'm able to be curious all the time. I'm able to read scientific papers. I'm able to delve into the science of grant proposals. I'm able to just take the brain that was shaped, being in school for so many years. And I loved that. I loved being on a college campus and being exposed to so many different ideas and reading a bunch and learning a bunch. And in my job now, I get to do that. And I love that. I love that I'm constantly learning, even being challenged by ideas, because we cover such a broad remit of science. There's so many different disciplines that I know very little about. And so to have the humility to just say that and to learn from team members, to learn from resources available to me, whether that's conferences or papers or grant proposals, whatever. I love learning, and I'm able to do that in my job, and I really appreciate that. And then, the other part about my job I love is at the end of the day, it comes back to the values, the things that I'm able to support. We're able to put money towards people and projects that are working to better understand and conserve the natural world and humanity. And that's just a mission I care very deeply about. And so to spend the majority of my waking hours for work with that end goal in mind is deeply satisfying. And to do it with people who make me laugh and inspire me and who are great teammates is just, it's all the better. So yeah, I'm at a particularly energized place in my job right now. I really feel like we're singing. There's tons of work to do, but we're in a really empowered and accountable place right now where we're getting a lot of great work done. And I feel really humbly proud of the team we've built and the work that we're accomplishing. So yeah, you asked me at a great time, and reflecting back on 2022 and all that we've accomplished this year. I'm feeling really good and really hopeful for 2023. And again, tons of work to do, but really feeling energized to go and do it.
Now, I know that you love reading books and podcasts and hearing about podcasts. I wonder if you have heard and read Think Again by Adam Grant.
I follow Adam Grant on, I think it's LinkedIn, but I've not read his book.
Okay. I would highly recommend either Rethinking as a podcast. He does interview quite a bit of people that are actually with very high profile. But just really, really awesome messages. And one of the things that I really like, because I am very principled, as I just said.
That's right.
Asking me to rethink whatever I believe to be true is very difficult. But if you look at it from an intellectual perspective, and very few people could kind of persuade me to that point. So I would actually, if you have some time, I would suggest maybe read the book Think Again. because it does open up some really interesting space for you to, like, especially in leadership. Like, we want to be, I think traditionally leaders need to be, well, what we think leaders is like, we know exactly, we have our vision, we know where we're going. Sometimes we really don't. I mean, we have the general vision, but every day things changes, right? And how do you accept your team and their idiosyncrasies and then respect that while still navigating your overall mission or vision of your organization?
I like that.
And so I think that was, I mean, that book kind of is one of the one that actually started me thinking a lot about, how to basically respect other people. But sometimes you cannot because it's really not in sync with what your core values are. So sometimes you just have to let it go. Being a good leader doesn't mean you agree with everyone on your team.
Sure. Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to realize that, hey, this is the energy leak. If I am actually doing everything and to people please this person or these people, then what would my grade A players think of me as a leader?
Yeah.
So those are some things.
So well said. Yeah, I like that. And so that's good to know, rethinking. I will check that out because I've actually heard quite a bit of good things about Adam Grant, his writing, beyond the short things I see on LinkedIn. So I should check that out. You also mentioned the word dare. And that reminds me of Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, which I really like. And I just keep kind of a mantra of mine from that book is clear as kind. And I think about that a lot when we, especially like communicating to grant applicants, communication across our organization, communication writing, clear is kind, right? If you want to say something, clarity in your words, clarity is important. And it's kind because the person knows exactly what is being told to them, right? They know the expectations, they know, if it's grant, the eligibility. Clear is kind. I love that from Brene Brown. But I think you're right too. And the whole idea of like, of course the team's not always, I mean, I really love my team, but the team doesn't always sing and we're on the same page, right? We're not always in agreement. I don't think it's healthy to always be in agreement. We added new team members this year. I think it's important for new perspective, different ways of thinking, challenging status quo. I like that. We wanted that on our team, but also, sometimes we kind of, I wouldn't say air grievances, but we air what's going on in a meeting. And then we have to just Elmo. Enough, let's move on, right? You get to a point where if you don't Elmo, you start to cycle and it becomes a negative cycle. And you're actually not then thinking about solutions. You're just vetching, right? And so I like to provide a safe space for people to air the grievances, but then we got to Elmo it and move on to the next thing and let's problem solve and get some work done. So yeah, I mean, Ashley, that's great. And I like books on leadership. I learn a lot from them. There's just so much to learn, so much to think about. You got to bring humility to leadership because of course you don't have the answers. Of course you don't have the vision that's right all the time. And also I'm in a position where I have leaders above me with visions, right? So you have to find what are you contributing? How can you carve out something that feels right for your team, but also is supporting the greater mission of, the CEO and my chief scientist. So yeah, that's all helpful what you just said. And I will look to the Rethinking podcast and also his book. Thank you.
You're welcome. I also love what I just learned, Elmo.
Oh yeah.
Let's move on.
Oh my gosh. That's from a former boss of mine, Tara Bunch, who no longer works in society, but she's such a smart leader. And yeah, Elmo I got it from her and I use it all the time. I love it.
Yeah, there's also another book, and so we are like basically two book lovers just talking about books. There's another book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And it's basically, I think she was at Google and at some point as a consultant. I don't know. Yeah, so that was also a very good book recommended to me by Mark Green, which is an executive coach. And when I was having a little bit of uncertainty on how to deal and tiptoeing around what needs to be said. Because I used to be, well, I'm still kind of a recovering people pleaser. So it's really difficult for me to make it like basically tell it like it is.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself being fake, but it's really cultural wise. I wasn't brought up to be like speaking my mind, especially as a woman, you know? And so I'm already not as submissive as some of the traditional Asian women would be. Huh. And I'm really glad about the current women empowerment movement. How do you view the current women empowerment movement? And where do you think this movement will eventually take us as women professionals?
I don't know that I see it apart from kind of a broader trajectory, a longer trajectory, one of female and female leaders from decades and generations before who started to break down barriers and blaze paths that we continue to build on today. So I don't see that. I don't think I see right now this particular time as something separate from or different from that. It's good, obviously, you know, as more women in leadership, a move toward gender equity, a move toward pay equity. You know, there's a lot of work to do. We're not there. If you look at the latest, the COP27 and the COP15 pictures, they show, you know, the heads of government, the African delegation that was just here in DC for the African, the African Summit, African Union Summit. I mean, you just look at all these pictures, the heads of leadership, and there's, you know, one woman, two women, you know, in the delegation. So there's a tremendous, globally, we have so much work to do. We can go tour around the world and see right now what the women of Iran are fighting for, the people of Iran are fighting for, to have any type of liberty and rights for women and beyond. So, you know, there's just so much work to do. In our own country, I think it's good. Like, we've made a lot of progress in so many ways. You know, Nancy Pelosi recently stepped down as the speaker, and that was historic. National Geographic currently has in power the first female CEO. That's amazing. You know, we have the first vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, who's a woman. You know, there really are these exceptional people who are the heads of government and of organization, of civil society. It's all very good. Of course, I'm heartened by that as a woman myself, but there's just so much work to be done. So, you know, gender-based violence, you know, I get easily saddened and frustrated by just how much work there is to do in our country and globally. And yet, of course, you have to say that progress has been made. You just can't look back 100 years, 50 years and say that we haven't made progress, because we certainly have. I think we have to all keep being mindful. And it's not just women, it's people who historically have not been in positions of power, who have been either underrepresented or intentionally kept out of positions of authority and leadership. And just, you know, continuing to make the world the place that we want it to be for ourselves and certainly for others and for our children. I feel a lot of different things, obviously. Lucky that I've been given the opportunity and had the luck and the chance to be in the position I'm in, and also recognizing that, like, we have a lot of work to do to make opportunities more equitable for more people in our country.
I think one of the, I'm going to share a little bit of what my thoughts on this topic is.
Good.
And the reason that why it's okay to be rambling, because we are still in the process of formulating exactly how we feel about it, because the visibility was not even there before. And now all of a sudden it just had this surge. Now I will share a little bit about, like, my grandmother, my maternal side of the grandmother actually had her feet bound, and she had like feet bound in traditional way of like basically controlling women. So I have seen like how her feet were like actually deformed.
Wow.
And I think sometimes it's really hard not knowing when we are like kind of in a society that is a little bit more outcome dependent, and we keep trying to track progress. And of course we get frustrated because it's hard for us to see the end in sight. But if you're looking at way back, like my grandparents first came to the States, And because they came to the state, it allowed us, they sponsor us, like my parents, my cousins, and us to come. And that is actually for the people that actually were here before, and they pay, whether they realize it at the time or not, little by little, I think that they basically help us shape the life that we can actually live now. Mm. And we don't really know. And I think sometimes our frustration comes from we're not seeing immediate results. Mm. And chances are we're not going to see immediate results because there's just so many factors. But by the time, for example, all the work that women or men, it doesn't necessarily, in this particular situation, we're talking about women empowerment, but there are a lot of men that are actually, just as helpful in helping push, this movement. Yes. So I don't necessarily want to discriminate one gender over the other. Mm-hmm. I do want to see more sort of like movement toward gender and pay equality for women. But like in my particular situation, I'm a CEO of a company. I come to the state when I didn't really speak much English. I was made fun of. And now I'm sitting here talking to you about women empowerment and having this virtual water cooler chat of a company that I created because of this opportunity and the platform, I can actually give different women professionals a voice to talk about what they care about. I thought that was pretty awesome.
That's totally awesome. It's totally awesome.
I think sometimes it's just like, it's really hard to look at like wildlife trafficking. And then it's like, we see the gruesome pictures. And of course we feel sad because if you're a sensitive person, you see the pictures, the pangolins, the elephant ivory, all this abuse of animals because people want to make a buck. It's so sad. But at the same time, it's for those people that are like with a huge heart like yourself and your colleagues and all the people that really care about the environment, the ecosystems that actually allow us to move forward. So when, your son grows up, he will be in a better place because of the work that his mother did.
Well, that is the hope. That is the hope.
Okay, what are some of the key lessons learned that you would like to share with our audience?
I would say the first thing I would say yes to opportunities. Part of me didn't want to say yes to this, right? Nervous to put yourself out there and be recorded. And this has been such a delight. And I've learned from you and it's been warming to get to spend time with you. So say yes. I've thought of that throughout my career. As long as it's not dangerous, I think as we grow professionally, it's good to say yes to things because even if it doesn't work out the way you thought, it's an experience. You will learn from it. You might meet new people from it. So where possible, say yes. I think the other thing, like the luck and serendipity of my own career has shown me just don't burn bridges, stay in touch with people. It doesn't mean you have to be in their inbox every day, but be kind to people and keep relationships because you never know when somebody's going to have a connection or an idea or be able to reach out and help you. So, really being able to extend that hand out to those coming behind you, those on the side of you, remembering, we all have humanity and we're all in this together doing our best. And then lastly, I guess I would just say, be true to yourself, know what matters to you. It might be a word like anthropology you didn't know until you were 18. So it might take your professional path in a different direction, but know what matters to you at your core. And then if there's divots and curves along the way, that's all fine. I think that's all great. A good part of life to get those additional curves, but always knowing where your North Star is and always knowing what really matters to you, because I think that way you're going to feel like you're living your truest self.
Wow. That's an amazing summation. And I really did enjoy our chat. And I'm so glad you said yes.